If you've been on the creative journey for more than a couple of days, and I'm sure at this stage it's months, years, or even decades, you'll know that there's places where you get stuck. And it's not always the same place, but from working with lots of creative people, photographers, musicians, writers, game developers, really talented people, they regularly get stuck at specific places. And with the people I've worked at, I have identified 6 stages, and I'm going to list them, but they're not necessarily linear. One doesn't always follow into the next, and you don't even necessarily jump from one to the other, or you might loop back and get stuck at a previous iteration. But I just want to talk through a few of these. So if you're a creative who's a musician, a writer, a photographer, a game developer, somebody who takes their creative skills and applies it and puts something wonderful out to the world, or wants to put something wonderful out to the world, but you get stuck on a regular basis, this video might help you. And not only would the video help you, but I'm also going to put a link in the description for a tool that I've created, a quiz that will help you identify which stage you're at. And I promise I will send you back a personalized video explaining kind of a little bit about where you're stuck and what you can do to move on. And if you've been here watching my videos for a while, you'll know that I already have tools out there and free resources to help you through these stages. So this is just another evolution on that way of thinking. Okay, well, let's quickly talk through the 6 different kind of pain points that I'm talking about. And let's get started by having an overview of these. You don't have to wait till the end to see this all. Here's the list. The space seeker, the stuck finisher, the isolated creative, the undervaluer, the business avoider, and the overwhelmed professional. Now, any one of those might resonate with you right now, or you might remember getting stuck in those places at different times, or maybe there's an adventure lying ahead of you where you're going to get to some of these places later. So maybe understanding them will help. Starting at the first one, the space seeker. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that I've dived into this a lot. So particularly around the fact that we're getting so distracted by our phones and content and the overwhelming noise, news, whatever it might be that's coming at us day in and out. And that's just one, that's the digital space. But we might need physical space. We might need to be able to set your stuff up so that you can work at it away from distractions. You might need time in your day. You might also need like emotional support. You might need people around you that are going to cheer you on and value what you do. But there could also be financial space. Like, are you able to meet your bills and pay your mortgage or your rent at the end of the month? Or are you completely stressed about that? Because that definitely diminishes our ability to be creative and like do fulfilling things. I've talked about this tons, and like for a lot of people who've been watching my videos, this is where we started our journey. And if you watched the last video I put up with Barney, kind of describing how we've been working together all year, like he found my starter kit, and we kind of rekindled our relationship because we'd worked together like over 10 years ago, and he was like, oh, what's this? He was so delighted to be able to put his phone down, walk away from it, and be able to jump in his Land Rover, drive down to the beach with his dog, go surfing, catch some waves, come back, start his day, be there for his kids, get them to school, and be able to show up for himself without being overwhelmed by the amount of emails that were coming in, or the messages, or the news. So that's really helped him to step away. And like I've talked about it before, but I'm really finding a new clarity in my thinking and my processing because I'm not always reaching for my phone. The second one, I had a quiz and helped some people through this as well earlier in the year, the idea of the stuck finisher. So you keep getting stuck trying to finish your projects. And I think as creatives, we love to start. We love to begin things. It's exciting and it's joyous to have a new work, a new beginning. Like, you're not getting bogged down in the messy middle. You're not trying to figure out like how you put it out into the world. But it's easy to have tons of projects sitting there waiting for you, and multiple abandoned projects, hard drives, sketchbooks full of work. But it's closely connected to like our struggles with perfectionism or maintaining focus. And maybe, you know, maybe you've got ADHD. Like maybe there's a significant challenge that you are trying to overcome and adapt to that means that you're distracted and you're scattered. And I think a lot of the people that I talk to, a lot of people that I know in the creative space, like we're not always neurotypical, and we do need additional tools, resources, ways of working that capture the wonderful disparate ways our brains are put together and engage them into like real work, But it is an awful lot to do with kind of building systems and supports and scaffolding there that helps us to move forward. The third place I see a lot of people getting stuck is the isolated creative. It's very easy for us to be our artists in our garage, our studios, sat in here with the door closed, and to keep working away and feel like you're chipping away with something, and then not being able to feel supported, connected, engaged, not knowing who to ask for help or turn to get a critique or understand how we could develop something or move it forward. Trying to figure everything out without peer review or without guidance from a mentor, and feeling like it's solo and it's a bit lonely. And I think that describes a lot of people that I talk to, but also like I've been there as well, trying to just do the simple work of like reaching out and wanting to build and support creatives. Like I feel like I'm doing it alone some of the time, although I'm trying to create connection and community, and I'm trying to be there, and I'm recording into a camera right now, but I want this to be like a two-way thing. I want to hear from you. I want to hear where you're at. I want to understand, like, what can I do better? How can I help you? And I can't do that alone. Like, I need the feedback. I can put these videos out and hundreds or even thousands of people can watch them, but like, I'm doing it for a reason. And I'm doing it because I want the world to be a better place, a more creative place. I want people to take their creativity and turn it into something. And probably in the same way that you want your art to reach people, to engage them on an emotional, physical level where they see it, they interact with it, they understand it, it challenges them in whatever way that you were trying to challenge them. But that can't happen in isolation, and it can't happen without being prepared to put it out into the world, but it also can't happen without like actually having a community, whether that's an audience or collaborators, whatever that looks like. I think there's, a real value in that connectedness. But I also think that it's a place where we can get stuck and we can start navel gazing and feeling lonely and down and alone about it. But there are ways through it. One place that I think lots of creative people get stuck as well is the idea of the undervaluing their work. Maybe doing some simple calculations on the back of an envelope going, well, I spent this many hours and I used this amount of materials, so it's worth X. But not really baking in the value of all of their experience, their training, their background, what the piece or the work might have value to other people. And I just think that particularly like in some industries, like maybe music, for example, there's a race to zero because like Spotify, Apple Music, like lots of these platforms are now making music a monthly subscription. It's completely undervalued, like how many songs you can play in that month from your phone. But that doesn't mean that there isn't value there. That doesn't mean that there isn't something that people can bring. And I think that a lot of artists are struggling to figure out, well, if AI can generate it with like a couple of words of a prompt, then what value can it have? But I would argue that it's even more valuable now that we have human or handmade art, that there's no guilt around what you can charge for it. And I know that's layered and it's nuanced and it's deeply problematic for some people, but that's why it needs to be challenged, and we need to stop giving things away for free and, understand that all that time, all that research, all that training, all of those things that you take doing development and trying things out, like all add up to something being super valuable. And what that value is, like I can't just pull a number out of the air, but it's definitely a conversation that, we need to have, kind of going back and forward to figure it out and help to understand that. And that is kind of the basics of the energy exchange, because that's ultimately like where this comes down to. And I think that feeds into the next idea, is the kind of business avoider. Like when we get into our work actually having value, then like we're actually running a business. And when you go to art school, music school, when you go to learn photography, like you don't do any training or any thinking about business, accountancy, marketing, any of the important things that you need to do to take your creativity, find a market and an audience and put it out there and actually turn it into something that could pay your bills. And I also get that a lot of people don't even want to get to that stage, but I do find that a lot of people like don't really want to avoid selling and all of this stuff, because it just feels the opposite of creative. And I get that. And I've been there as well. Like for months of this year, I've been putting up content, but I haven't been saying, oh, here's how you could work with me, or here's how I can help you. And in some ways, that's not helping you, because I'm not providing you with all the solutions that you might want. You might not be providing you the access that you need to somebody who can help walk you through these stages. But also it's not helping me because it's not paying my mortgage or my bills. So like I've been there, I get it. And I also think that as creatives, we sometimes take things, just, I want it easy, I want it simple, but often easy and simple is on the back of building systems and structures and putting things in place so that you're able to take a deep breath and let things go and realize all of these things that you've put together are worth building and they are important, because otherwise you're just going to get stuck wasting time doing simple tasks. I think that leads me on to the last one, the idea of the overwhelmed professional. They're just drowning in admin and operation, and they've really lost a deep connection to why they started this. Their day-to-day doesn't allow them space and time to be creative, which is almost a loop back to the first one, the space seeker. When we're drowning in that admin piece, we're drowning in that work, it's just, we're being reactive and overreacting to those things. And the grind just takes the joy out of it. And I'm sure lots of you can relate to that space. And I think that's why it's important to loop back to why are you doing this? Why is it important? But then also remember that, like I said, it's that energy exchange of actually putting something valuable into somebody's hands and having them react. So they're just some of the situations that I regularly see people getting stuck. I don't think it's a finite list. I don't think it's linear. I don't know that you necessarily go from one stage to another. I think you can get stuck in some stages longer than others. I think some of them you're able to self-correct, you're able to see it, but it does take a level of self-reflection. It takes a level of understanding it, and there are always ways and tools to be able to step out of them. And If you want help to identify where you're stuck, there's a link in the description for a simple quiz. It's just going to be like yes, no, true, false answers. It's not going to take you long, and it'll give you an idea of where you're at. And I'll respond with a video to say, hey, here's where I think you're stuck. Here's a couple of things that you can do to move forward. Or if you think you're ready to talk about it, there's also going to be a link in description, and there's one on my website, to be able to book in a 30-minute free clarity call. There's no obligation here, but it will help you to find a little bit about where you're at. We can talk it through and just to help you kind of figure out a way forward. But there are tools out there to help you. There's ways in which you can move forward, figure this out, and move on. Hopefully by understanding a little bit more about the stages where we get stuck, we can get an idea that we're all in this together, that you're not alone, that there are places that we can often get tripped up on, and that's okay. But if you want some more help and you'd like to figure out what working with me looks like, here's a video of me and Barnaby talking through what our journeys look like over the past couple of months. Because fixing these isn't an instant thing. It does take time. Okay, follow up the link in descriptions, subscribe if you've got this far, and until next time, stay creative.